Welcome to the Dare to Begin Small and Mighty podcast, episode number 50. I'm super excited that you're here with me today. Amy Famille here. Today we're talking about friction. Friction in your life, friction in your business, good friction, bad friction. I have a skiing analogy for you because I'm kind of a nerd like that. And I'm excited about today's episode. I think there's going to be some major positive growth for you in the episode. With that, let's dive right on in. I spent years building my interior design business, trying to do all the things. The marketing, the networking, the free content, spending thousands of dollars on training and education, only to see minimal growth. After years of frustration, I finally started to ask, what am I missing? I had the systems in place for powerful growth. I had amazing clients. I had determination, drive, and commitment to spare. And yet, I wasn't seeing the success I desired. What if business is not about the doing? What if building a powerful business requires both powerful systems and something else, something deeper? I'm Amy Famille, and I'm on a journey to discover that something else. If you are ready to build a powerful business and do it knowing that your success is inevitable, join me as I share both the powerful systems I know work and my lessons and revelations as I discover that something deeper. Welcome, Changemaker, to the Dare to Begin Small and Mighty podcast. Well, hey there, Changemaker. Amy here. How are you today? I am very happy to be here with you again today. If you listened to my last two episodes, first of all, thank you so much for sticking with me as I was still working very much through the cold that I had coming into the new year. I have a little bit of a husky voice, but for the most part, I am on the other side of it. So thanks so much for sticking with me and listening to those episodes. Really appreciate it. I am really happy that you're here. I really love that a few of you I know are listening in regularly. I would love it, even a little extra, if you would share the episodes out. Share your favorite ones with your friends or with your family or with your colleagues or heck, wherever you want to. Just share it out. That would really make my day. I would love to have this podcast reach more people than it currently is, which is not to say that I'm not grateful for each and every one of you, but just to say that this year feels like a big leveling up for me. And I've talked about this a bit in the last few episodes, but I do know that 2020 is going to see a lot of change for me in my life, in my business, and in every avenue of my existence on this physical plane, as well as a few on the not so physical plane, talking more about like the spiritual self and our highest self, and as Jim Fortin calls us, our cosmic beings. So this year is going to be a big leveling up. So I'm excited for it. So I would just love if you would help me in that leveling up and just share it out. Share out the podcast. If you're finding value in it, then I would love for you to share that with someone else who could hopefully find value in it as well. So it's a Monday here in Calgary. I am feeling a little bit sleepy today. Sundays are ski days in our household, and like ski days are the holy grail of days in this house. I look forward to ski days all week long. And my dad messaged, his girlfriend actually messaged. We have some furniture that we've been storing here, been working on a living room design with them. And they're coming out next weekend, I think, to come pick up the furniture. And they're like, if we get snowed in on Sunday, we'll just stay one more day longer. And I was like, that's cool, but we're going skiing on Sunday. So you can hang out here. We're going to be on the ski hill. There are no excuses to not going unless it's like minus 25 or we literally cannot drive away from the house. Like, we're that dedicated. We're big on skiing. So I'm feeling a little bit sleepy today. We had a big day on the hill yesterday. I mentioned this either last episode or the episode before that skiing has been a big win for me this year. I feel like I've been doing some phenomenal progress and or making some phenomenal progress, and it's such a joy for me to just revel in that, to be totally honest, to revel in where I've come, to revel in the fact that I'm not, the slowest person, I'm not holding everybody back. Yesterday was a perfect example. I was skiing with my guy and his brother and then a couple of his friends, and his friends are used to me being a bit slower, and they were all like, holy moly, Amy's gone already. Boy, she really motors. Dave's like, yeah, she means business when she gets out here. So I'm really enjoying in that. And I thought about this, I was thinking about this yesterday, thinking about, is there a point at which we get a bit cocky about it? Now, skiing is quite an interesting sport. I feel like golf is probably similar. I'm not sure if other sports are quite the same, but there's a very fine line between celebrating where you're at and like just focusing on improving and enjoying what you're doing and getting overconfident, because I feel like but like skiing and golf, the reason I say golf is that I feel like those are two sports that very quickly can humble you and bring you back down to earth, right? Like if you are not paying attention when you're hurtling down the ski hill, you could end up in a tree or worse. If you're golfing and you're just like, oh, I'm the bomb and like things are amazing. I feel like golf has a way of just sort of getting in your head, and all of a sudden, you pull your what the heck do you call it when you hit the golf ball? Your swing. You pull your swing and you might, slice or whatever. And so I find them quite interesting. I think that both sports are something that really requires some deep mindfulness. You need to really pay attention when you're at there or doing those sports, but also, not being so much in your head that you start to create bad habits or create negative outcomes. So I've been thinking about this, am I celebrating too much? And I thought, no, I think I'm actually celebrating the right amount. I have characteristically over my life, and you may be the same, undersold success that I have, undersold how much I've improved, or brushed it off. That's what we're taught in society. That's what we're taught. We're taught that celebrate your success, but don't celebrate it too much, because then you come across as cocky. And there is a line, like I said, with skiing and golf. I feel like those are two sports that really keep you honest on it. There's that fine line between really celebrating and owning it and being proud of yourself while still keeping an eye on improving or wanting to, maybe tweak something a little bit, adjust your technique a little bit, but still enjoying it. Right. And then there's the overconfident side where it's just like, oh, I'm the bomb and like I could do this all day. And then if you're on the ski hill, you hit a patch of ice, and next thing you know, you're staring at the sky and your gear is spread all over the mountain around you. So I think it's important that we focus a bit more on leaning into those celebrations, leaning into, like what is something that you've been really working on. And I don't care whether the rest of the world thinks that you're successful at it or not. And the truth is, I don't care whether everybody else around me on the ski hill recognizes that I'm doing so well. I feel amazing, and I'm constantly working and tweaking. I'm this season, and I started a little bit last season. I'm starting to learn. I'm trying to practice how to carve. So carving is a whole different level of skiing. And essentially, it's what I've been doing for the last 5-6 years is sliding down the hill, right? So you'd make your turns and sort of slide down the hill. But if you see someone who's really got beautiful technique, and snowboards, if you have a beautiful carving snowboard, this is something you can really see the line. If someone can really hold the line and hold the friction and just like hold that edge, you have such a clean cut into the snow. It doesn't scrape off the snow. It leaves quite a groove, actually, depending on how soft the snow is. It leaves quite a groove, but it's a clean line. That's what carving does. It takes a phenomenal amount of strength and technique, and there's a certain speed that you need to be going in order to be able to get that edge on whether it's your board or your ski. So it's something that I've been working on. So when someone can really pull a beautiful line and carve into the hill, you can see right away. The proof is literally in the pudding, as they say, right? You can see the line that someone's coming down. But what I want to relate here is the amount of force that is required and the amount of friction that is required in order to be able to do it. So I'm celebrating the win. I'm celebrating the success that I'm having. I'm celebrating how much I'm improving, and that I'm not holding people up anymore, and that, I can like really bomb down the hill, that I'm practicing different terrain, all of those things. But one of the things that I'm really practicing on is to start to understand, like, how does it feel when I hit a carve line? What does my body need to be doing? How much effort is required for me to hold that line? What I want to talk about today is friction. So we often think of friction as being a bad thing, right? We think about friction as being something that is just like, it's not good, it's not enjoyable. Friction means that there's something going against the grain. If there's lots of, I think in my mind, and I apologize, I have no notes today other than I knew I want to talk about friction today. But if we think about friction, often if we think about like there's friction in our business, or there's friction in our relationship, or there's friction in our life, we mean that as a negative thing. Something is not going the way we want it to be going. Something is going against the grain of what we are desiring. So I was thinking a lot the last couple weeks about friction and what is the role that friction plays. So if I look at, for example, skiing, the role that friction plays is really what allows us, like, I need to have resistance on my skis in order to be able to make those turns, in order to be able to not just, if I had no resistance, my skis are basically pointing downhill. I'm shitting my pants on the way down because I'm going way too fast. And Lord help me, I don't know where I'll end up, probably in a heap, possibly in a tree. So friction is what allows me to direct my skis to be able to make those turns, to be able to create either a well-executed turn or to be able to slow down. Because the lack of friction, right, the more smooth that ride is, then the faster that I'm going to go. I'm just going to be continually gaining speed. I need to have a certain amount of friction to be able to control my descent, to be able to control where I want to go. So to grab a perfect carving line, which I have yet to do, but I have full confidence in myself that I'm going to get there, there's a very nice balance between the friction that you are having on the hill, on the snow itself, and the balance that you have on your skis. You need to, like I said, you need to be going a certain amount of speed. I'm practicing on certain kinds of terrain, super steep terrain. I'm just happy to get down. I'm not yet at the point where I'm able to carve. People who can do a beautiful carving line on really steep hills are typically racers. They kind of understand what it is that they're doing. But even so, if you really want that, like if you watch, again, I say this about a snowboarder, if you watch a beautiful snowboarder coming down with a really nice carving board, you'll see they're almost lying down on the snow. Like when they pull a turn, they're almost horizontal because they need to create enough balance, enough counterweight against the friction, the push of the hill against the board to allow that line to form. And if they're standing up, then the friction doesn't hold the line, it just scrapes, right? Then you get this more of a sliding turn. So I've been thinking a lot about friction in my business and in my life and wondering like, okay, how can I look at friction as something that is more positive than just feeling like, oh, I'm feeling this friction right now and I'm not really enjoying it. So this week came up, or last week there was something interesting that came up. So I've mentioned before that I have a job, and if you're my colleagues listening in, thanks so much. And hey, I love that you guys are hanging out with me. So, I deal with the public in a very technical way in my job. And for the most part, I really love it. But there are moments where I'm just like, oh my goodness, what the heck? I had two interactions with people last week where they said something that was completely uncalled for and really frustrated me. Left me feeling like just not the good feeling. Some of them were just like, you're just being a fucking asshole. And some of them were just like, why? Why do you feel that you need to say these things? And so after this, last week was a tough week for me emotionally. I felt like there was a lot coming at me. There was a lot of things happening in my life, in my business, in my job. And I was emotionally, I was struggling last week. There was a phenomenal amount of friction in my life last week. And there's a point at which, and you'll know this because you've been there, there's a point at which you can handle yourself really well in certain situations, but when it's coming at you constantly in multiple directions, your resistance wears down and you're not able to maintain your stability in the face of friction. And that's what we tend to think of friction as, is this negative experience that, it's wearing us down. So I got to thinking about this, and I was thinking about these people that I'd had these interactions with. And I know that when someone says something or is insulting or is just being a douchebag or whatever it is, I know that that reflects much more on who they are than who I am. But by the same token, not to just pass it off and be like, well, this is all you, this is not me. I got to thinking, I'm like, okay, Amy, there's something's going on here. It's there's a reason that this is coming up for you constantly. There's a reason that this has come up a number of times this week. And I started to think less about like the interaction itself and what was the emotion that I felt behind those interactions, because I had a very similar physical reaction. I could feel in my body like this energy. That's the only way I can describe it. That just like ran through my body, left me shaking. Like literally, I felt like my arms were trembling. And I'm like, okay, there's something going on here. And so as I leaned into it and started to ask some good questions, like I mentioned last week, it's all about the questions that we're asking. I realized that the overriding emotion that I had following these interactions was one of real deep disrespect. This person, these people did not respect me. They did not show respect to me. And so then I got to thinking, I'm like, okay, well, that's very interesting. And respect is a deep value of mine. It's one of my core values. This is both true in my business and in my life. Respect is a very, very, very important thing for me, and something that I strive to express to others and I expect back from others. And so what I've learned in my many years on this planet, what I have learned is that if there's something showing up in my life like this, these instances of disrespect, then there's somewhere in my life that I am not respecting myself. Because, and I think we've talked about this before, life reflects back to you who you are. And this is a tough truth to really take in. And it is one that really fucking sucks, to be totally honest with you. I know the first few times I heard this, I wanted to punch the person who was just like, I'm like, screw you. I did not put out there that I wanted my family to treat me this way. I did not put out there that I wanted my boss to speak to me this way. I did not put out there that I wanted this guy to cut me off in traffic or whatever it was. How, like, I do my best to be a good person. How is life reflecting back to me all this shit that I'm really not enjoying? And so it's a big curve. So if you're in it right now, if you're in that, like you kind of want to punch me. I totally feel you. You kind of want to punch me because you're saying like, Amy, I did not put out that I wanted this in my life. Right? Like I've gone through some shit. I've gone through some heavy stuff in my life, but I know there are situations in your life or maybe someone that you know that are heavier and deeper and even more painful than what I've gone through. And maybe something totally unrelated, right? It may be something that you feel is completely out of your control. And that's true. It is out of your control. But it's the way that we look at it, and it's the way that we take it, right? I'm sure you've heard this before, that, 2 or 3 or 4 people can experience the exact same situation and they will all experience it differently based on their emotions, where they are in life right now, what they know, what they've learned, what they believe. Totally different. You and I could go through the exact same thing and I could have come out saying like, wow, that was such an amazing experience. And you could come out saying, I fucking hated it. I don't ever want to do that again. So when I say, life is really this mirror that presents for us, I'm with you in understanding that this is not an easy truth to accept. It's not an easy truth to be like, okay, this situation is showing up to teach me something, right? Like, and even if you can say, okay, I know I'm here to learn something, it doesn't necessarily make it any easier. But here's the thing. So as I was thinking about these interactions with these people and I was thinking about this disrespect, I started to look back and I started to realize there's a number of places and relationships in my life where disrespect would pop up somewhat frequently. So I love my guy's family very much, but there's one member in his family in particular that has a number of times in my mind, in the way that I experience certain situations, been rather disrespectful for me. Or to me. And it always bothered me. And I did my best to, like, it's okay, whatever. They don't mean it this way, whatever. But it always sat in my mind. And so there was a situation that came up this weekend. We had the opportunity to spend some time with this person. And don't get me wrong, I think they're fantastic. I enjoy spending time with them. But there was something that came up that allowed, and I don't want to be specific because, they may be listening, and I don't want to insult anybody. And we don't need to get into the specifics to be able to learn from it. But basically what I realized, so there was this opportunity to spend time with this person, and the way that this person approached a certain aspect of how we spent time together was something that had happened multiple times in the past and always left me feeling really shitty or angry or frustrated or something. And because I had been doing all this deep thinking and asking all these questions, I realized that this was an opportunity for me to accept being disrespected. And so I thought about this and I thought, if I want to attract more respect into my life, if I want, whether it's, this anonymous person that I interact with in my job, or someone who is, in the family of the person that I love the most dearly in the world, then I need to show respect to myself. And that doesn't mean, I want to be very clear on this. It does not mean that we, and forgive me if this sounds a bit wrong or racial. It's not intended to be that way at all. But if you think about, I love Black women. I think they're just the bomb. I love how confident they are. I love how they come across. But I love to think about, this idea of like the disrespect where they're just like, ain't nobody fucking disrespecting me, right? Like they just sort of like go for it. And I so admire that about them. But I think what we have as a society done, we've adopted this idea of, I'm going to stand up for myself, but in a way that is like creating more friction. So if you're standing up and saying, I'm fucking done, this is how it's going to be, y'all are going to have to start paying attention to me, this is how it's going to be, and I don't give a rat's ass who it upsets and how it comes across and because this is my life and I'm going to live it. That's not the way to go about creating that change in your life, because what you're doing, you're coming at it with such phenomenal, not helpful energy, right? There's anger, there's frustration, there's fear, there's whatever else that's behind it, which is actually creating more resistance. And what is resistance? Resistance is friction. And so when you keep pushing against it, you're going to get more of the same. So when I was looking at this and saying, okay, there's this, I'm understanding now that I'm not showing myself respect in these areas of my life. Where I'm learning, like, I don't know all the specific areas yet, I haven't pinpointed them all yet, but when this situation came up and what beautiful divine timing that it showed up this way, I realized, I'm like, okay, this is an invitation for me to either choose to put myself in a situation where I again feel disrespect, where I again feel, put down or put aside in some way, not valued, or this is an opportunity for me to show respect to myself. And I don't have to be an asshole about it. So in this particular case, I knew the action that I needed to take to bring that respect to myself, and not in a way that was going to upset anybody or cause any other issues. And so I was a bit nervous about it, but I did it. It was related to driving. And so when it came to, where we're going to be, I said to my guy, you know what? I actually am going to drive myself. I just said to him, I just want to spend some time on my own. You go spend some time with your family. That's fantastic. And that was it. I didn't open it for questioning, and I had to work so hard to not ask, is that okay? Why do I need someone else to okay it for me? That is a habit that I am working on breaking right now, that I seem to be looking for this approval or a way of, like, is it all right with you if I try to do this? Is it okay with you if I'm working on growing in this area? It's not any of their business. And I know the answer would be yes. My guy is the most amazing person on the planet. Of course he'd say yes. He would have no issue with it. But it was on me to not, put myself in that situation. Here's the thing. I had the most amazing drive. I loved every moment of it. I listened to an episode of Jim Fortin's podcast. If you haven't been listening to it, I highly recommend it. And I arrived where we were supposed to be going and just felt amazing. And I realized all of a sudden the whole rest of the day was much more, it was much easier for me. There was less of the negative friction in my day. If I had allowed myself to, for whatever reasons that I would talk myself into, if I had allowed myself to do the old pattern, to do something like, I just don't want to make waves. I just want to be easy to get along with. I just, blah, 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 whatever it is. I have a tendency, or have had a tendency, to always put someone else's needs above my own, which is not actually a very healthy tendency. I have friends who have the same, and it's kind of funny that, we have these conversations that we all seem to do the same in our own different ways, not necessarily with one another, but definitely with, family members or people who are more prone to take advantage of that characteristic. And so because I had stepped into my own self, I want to be careful about saying stepping into my power, because again, I don't want us to start thinking about like, I'm just going to own it and like, fuck you guys, because that particular energy is not going to surface in this case. If we want to really change, deeply change, move into a higher frequency version of ourselves, someone who is, creating a bigger impact in the world, who is inspiring people around us, who's just living a more joyful, happy life, then we can't go into our change like a bull in a china shop. We need to go into our change with just a calm, resistance free, right? So we're just allowing it to happen. I'm not saying, I'm not arguing for the fact that I need to show myself respect. I don't need to argue for those things. All I need to do is allow in myself to say, you know what, Amy, this is the right choice for us to do right now. And so when you do that, all of a sudden it changes. So my day last week, whenever it was, changes. It got way easier. There were points that perhaps, had I gone the other way, could have created more friction, because I would have had this, negative emotion and this negative talk happening in my head. And then, all of a sudden my day is far less enjoyable. Whereas the way that I went about it, because I set the day up from the beginning to be respectful to me, then all of a sudden the day was much nicer. I enjoyed interactions with the people that were around us. I enjoyed the things that we were doing. I enjoyed, the time and the jokes and everything else. There was no extra talk happening in the background. So there are times of friction when we need to pay attention. There are times of friction in our business where it's a sign telling us we're going the wrong way. Like, it's just not working. You need to just turn around. This is not the way for you, right? If it feels like it's just so friggin' hard and no matter what you do, it's not getting better, that is a friction that is telling you, hey, listen up, something is not in alignment here. So let's maybe take a step back and, like I said last week, to start asking some really good questions and start leaning into it a bit, the same way that I did with these situations where I was, had these people coming at me with these like insults or just like really rude comments. Take a step back and go, okay, what am I feeling here? And where am I creating this particular thing in my life? Because if I'm inviting it back in, that means I'm putting it out somewhere. And when I'm putting it out somewhere, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm being disrespectful of someone else, but I may not be respectful of myself. Like I said, respect is a huge value of mine. I do my best to be respectful of those around me. I know that, with pretty high accuracy, that I'm pretty respectful of people around me. Even people who are being total douchebags, I still do my best to be respectful of them. Which says to me then, okay, there's something that I'm treating myself in such a way that is welcoming this in. So if you're feeling that right now, if you're feeling some friction in your life, if you're feeling some friction in your business, I want you to lean into that a little bit. Start asking those questions like we talked about last week. Start looking for, if there's friction in my life coming up in this way, Why is it showing up? What am I putting out there? And when I say out there, what am I putting out there for myself? What situations on me am I creating that is allowing this to come in? So something that I find fascinating, I have a friend who I just adore. I think she's just one of the sweetest people in the world, but she has a habit of um and if I said this to her, I think she'd probably punch me in the face. She has a habit of always allowing others to dictate what happens in her life. And it frustrates the fuck out of me, to be totally honest, because she has big goals, she has big dreams, she has these amazing things that she wants to do. She has a heart to, do these things, but she is always creating situations whereby her outcome is entirely dependent on somebody else. And then she gets angry or frustrated because this other person did not act or step up in the way that she wanted them to, and so now she has all of this strife in her life. Well, she's creating that. And how do I know that? Because our interactions are totally different. I don't have people in my life that I, allow them to have this phenomenal amount of control into my life. I don't wait for people. And I should say one caveat here, with my relationship with my guy, that's a little bit different because I feel like when you're in a romantic relationship and the way that we are, it can't just be all about me, right? So there are times when I allow what I wanted to do or something to fall back in favor of doing something that he may want to do, or in favor of not doing something that he didn't want to do, right? Like if I wanted to go out somewhere and he just wanted to stay home or something, then that's right. That's a little bit different. But I don't have people in my life where I'm constantly, things like, say, for example, starting a business. I'm not waiting for someone else to say, okay, I'm here to support you, and so now you can go ahead and start the business. I'm not waiting for someone to say, let's do this class together. Oh, they fell out, and so now I can't do it because this person's not there anymore. Whatever the situation is. But she's creating it constantly in her life, and then she feels frustrated. And she is, pointing to all the things around, looking at, I'm tired of this city. I'm tired of where we live. People here don't think the way that I want them to. People here, they just don't have the values the way that they should. And, if I just go here, it will be better. And I would argue that if you go somewhere else, it's going to be more of the same. Years ago, shortly after my parents separated, I think I don't know, I think it was maybe 16 or 17. I don't remember exactly. But I remember, so my parents immigrated to Canada from the Netherlands. And after my parents separated, their divorce was nasty. It took years. I think it was about 10 years before it was finally signed. I remember the day that one of my parents said, I'm officially divorced from your mother or father, whichever one it was. And I'm like, what do you mean officially? Haven't you been divorced for like years? And it literally took, I think it was 10 years for it to finish up. But earlier on, maybe 2 or 3 years in, I remember my mom coming to me and she was thinking about moving back to the Netherlands. She felt that it was going to be just the right decision for her. Things were going to be better for her, all these things. And she wanted to know what I thought. And I just said to her, I don't know where I had this wisdom from, but I just said to her at the time, I said, if that's the move that you want to make, great. I fully support it. But if you think that it's going to be better there than it is here, then I think you need to have another thought about it, because the problems there are the same as the problems here. Moving away will not make them go away. And I don't know if that ever landed with her or not. I don't know if she ever took that into consideration or not. And I don't really care. It's not about, what, did my words land? It's not about that. But I remember even then realizing that we can't run away from our problems. We can't move away from our problems. We can't, shift our physical reality away from our problems if we're not willing to face them. So if there's negative friction in your life, that means there's something coming up for you to address. There has been something that's been popping up into my mind the last couple of weeks. I've had some really interesting dreams about it. And I know there's a person in my life that's created a phenomenal amount of pain and heartache and frustration and many other negative emotions in my life that I have known for quite some time. I've taken a big step away from the relationship to allow myself t- time that's free and clear of this person's influence to heal and to grow. And they have been coming up consistently the last week or so. And I know the way that they're coming up, I'm like, okay, the time is approaching that I need to heal this situation. And not necessarily that this is something that I'm struggling with a little bit, is it's not necessarily that I need to heal the situation so I can commence a relationship with this person again. I'm still back and forth. Do I actually want a relationship with this person? Because between you and me, to be totally honest, my life is actually much happier, much more joyful, far less stressful when this person is not involved in my life. And so, the question becomes, what does that look like going forward? But I know that right now, I can't see that. What does that look like going forward? Because I have not actually healed what has been going on. I have been sort of chipping away at it. I've been doing small things, and then I'm like, okay, I feel like this is feeling better. I feel like this is getting better. I feel like I'm starting to release this more. And then I get just fucking nailed with it where I'm like, okay, apparently I haven't actually fully addressed it. So I know in me that this is coming up, this emotional friction is coming up for me because it's showing me now is the time. We're into the time now when things show up like this, when you have like memories or frustrations or things, from people in your past that seems to be constantly coming up. All of a sudden you're angry at this person all over again, or frustrated or sad or whatever else. It's showing up because it's actually your body and your emotions are trying to say like, hey, hello, let's now deal with this. This is the time for us to deal with this. And whether or not you think, it's a great time or not, that's not the point. It's showing up for you to deal with it. So that's something that I need to lean into. Not need to, I want to lean into it because I want to actually, I have a sense in that for me, this particular, it's a big loaded, it's woven through the entire fabric of my physical existence here, this relationship with this person, that I have a feeling when when I can finally heal it, when I can properly go through to the very root and heal it and release it and allow it to just be, I feel like my life is just going to blow wide open. I feel like all of a sudden, stay tuned, button up, guys, because I feel like it's going to have a phenomenal impact on my business, on the podcast, on all kinds of things. And I've known for more than a year that this is something that I want to address, but it wasn't time yet. It wasn't time yet. And now I'm like, it's time. We're getting there. So if you're seeing that kind of friction, that friction is showing up to tell you, hey, there's something that we need to pay attention to here. Like I said, with those interactions I had with those people the last couple of weeks, I knew that those were showing up to say, hey, there's something to pay attention to here. And it's not about pointing the finger at those people, right? I know in those moments, yeah, I was frustrated and I was angry and I was hurt and I took it personally. And even though I knew, this is not about me, this is a reflection of this person. But it also opened up the avenue for me to start asking those questions and realize that, oh my goodness, look, I've actually been creating a lot of disrespect in myself. I have not been showing myself respect, and therefore it's showing up in my life. So, okay, so that's something that I can work on. I can start to practice that a little bit. So I would encourage you to see that friction for a positive thing. And as I mentioned with my example of skiing and snowboarding, there is good friction. All friction does not have to be bad. All friction does not necessarily mean like, hey, there's something we need to heal here. Hooray, who's excited for doing more in-depth emotional work? There is some friction that's really good. There is, I'm trying to think of a really solid example for you guys. It may come to me. Skiing is the most like contextual example I can think of that kind of gives you an idea of, that there's the good friction that allows us to actually make those turns and cut into the hill and hold the line that we're going for. But there's moments of positive friction in your life as well. I think anytime that we're doing personal growth, if you have done any kind of personal growth, I think you will have felt those moments of friction. And those moments of friction are not a warning sign saying, turn back, this is not for you. Those moments are a affirmation because you're feeling that friction, that things are starting to come off. You're starting to actually address it. When it comes to personal growth, a lot of friction, I suspect is, I have to study up on this a little bit, but I suspect a lot of the friction that we feel is actually the friction between, the ego self or the lizard brain part of ourself, the conscious mind part of ourself, that is freaking the fuck out because we're moving somewhere that it doesn't know. I've talked about this in previous podcast episodes that, when we're creating those changes, the reason that it's really tough sometimes to make those changes is because the part of our brain, the part of our makeup that is intended to keep us, I'm giving air quotes here, safe, to make sure that, we don't die in some way, shape, or form, it's totally uncomfortable with this because we're stepping outside of the norm. It's like, what the fuck is going on right now? I can't handle this right now. So that's a good friction. That's a friction that we can lean into, and knowing full well, trusting that as we move into it with faith, with an understanding that, what we're doing, the growth, the learning, the whatever, is actually creating a phenomenal amount of positive momentum in our life, but it's going to take us some time to, move through that friction point. I think that's really good for us to remember that that's a positive friction. So that's all I want to talk about today. I know that sounds like all of a sudden we just, that was it. That's it, guys. That's all I got today. But I just wanted to put that into your mind, to really think about that friction, to lean into it, to observe those moments of friction in your life, and be able to take a moment to observe, like, is this a positive friction that is something that is encouraging me to ask some really good questions, to maybe practice something different, or to, look for, if I'm asking these questions, look for a result that maybe is pointing me to something in my life? Or is this a friction that is saying, like, we're going the wrong way? This is not where we need to be going, right? So if I take it back to our example of skiing, positive friction is, you're cutting a beautiful line on the hill. You're just like, it feels effortless in a way, even though your body is working really hard, but it's just a beautiful feeling as you're moving down the hill, and your gear is doing what it should, and you can feel that, you're cutting turns, and it's just a really lovely feeling. And then there's friction where you're barreling through a stand of trees, you're hitting every branch on the way through and just praying all the way through that you don't die. That is not a positive friction. It's not one that I've ever done before, because I very specifically don't ski in the trees, partly for that reason. But if you're feeling that kind of friction where it's just like, it's not positive, there's not a good outcome out of this particular situation other than it will eventually end, that's a sign that maybe there's something that needs to be tweaked. All right? Cool. Now, I mentioned the last couple episodes that I have something coming for you guys, and I do. I'm still working on it. The ideas are still popping in, which is phenomenal. My goal, I'm going to put this out there with you guys. My goal is that by next week's podcast episode, which would put us into the beginning of February, February 2020, is that I'm going to have this experiment live and ready to go. Now, I will say, because there is it's an experiment that I'm working on. There's a number of different things that I'm trying to figure out what it's going to look like, and how I need to set it up. For the moment, it's only going to be available to you, my podcast subscribers, which means that if you are not subscribed to the podcast right now, I would encourage you to go over to daretobegin.net/blog, and there'll be a big subscribe button at the top of the page for you to subscribe to the podcast. You're going to get, I'm not going to spam the hell out of you. When you subscribe to the podcast, you get an email once a week from me with the podcast link, with some notes or some content that I, as Marie Forley likes to say, I don't share anywhere else. Essentially, I like to write a little email that sort of gives some highlights of the podcast, but also some other insights that I don't share into here, because I either don't think about them or it doesn't make sense to share them in the podcast. So subscribe to the podcast. You'll get that email once a week from me. And then because you're subscribed, you'll also get the occasional, opening, what's the word I'm looking for here? Opportunity to be able to join in some of these new things. So my goal, I'm saying this to you, I don't know what the next Tuesday is. I think it's like maybe the 4th or the 3rd of February, whatever it is, that by the next time that we are sitting together on our podcast together, I'm going to have that offer available for you. So if you haven't yet, subscribe, daretobegin.net/blog. Get yourself in there, subscribe, and I wish you a phenomenal rest of the day. Thank you so much for tuning in to me. I so appreciate it. Just a real quick note before we end here. This, as I've mentioned already, 2020 is a year of phenomenal growth. I know that already. I know that there's going to be some deep changes for me in my life, in my businesses, and in all areas of it. And one of those, I say one, it's like a myriad of options within it. But one of the big things is having a look at Dare to Begin at the podcast, and if I'm tweaking the direction a little bit. So I would really love some feedback from you guys. If you are really enjoying the podcast, I would love to hear it. You can email me directly, amy@daretobegin.net. That one would come to me directly. It's amy@daretobegin.net. And I would love to hear your feedback. What kind of episodes are you really enjoying? What's the content that you would love to hear more of? With regards to your business, what would you like to, what are you struggling with? What would you love it if I could talk about a bit more or provide some more clarity around? Because there's a tweaking in the trajectory that I feel is going on right now, and I'm still going to be here for you. It's still going to be about your business. It's still going to be about more than just the business strategy. I have been, between you and me, to be totally honest, feeling a little bit guilty in a way that I feel like it's been actually a long time since I've had a podcast episode that is specifically about business strategy. And if you're saying like, yeah, Amy, when are you going to hit me with the business strategy? I'll be totally honest. I don't know. But if there's something in particular that you want to know, or a strategy in particular, or area of your business in particular that you're just like, Amy, I would love some more insight on this, then please email me, hit me up, amy@daretobegin.net. Send me an email with your feedback and let me know, what you'd love to hear more about, so that I can tailor the content a little bit more and pay a little extra attention to you guys in terms of what's working for you and what's not. All right, with that, I wish you a phenomenal week. Every time I end the podcast, I could just talk for hours, but I wish you a phenomenal week, and I'm so looking forward to seeing you next week. Bye for now. Are you tired of figuring it out all on your own? Of sitting in overwhelm, knowing that you're not moving forward, but having no idea where or how to start? Are you ready to learn effective, profit-supporting strategies for your business so that you can finally earn the money you desire and step into the freedom that you're working so hard to create? If so, I invite you to join me inside the Launchpad. You'll get instant access to free training designed to meet you where you are right now and propel you forward toward the dream that you hold in your mind. It's time to make a powerful move toward your future. Time to step up and serve the people who desperately need your help. Let's not keep them waiting any longer. Today is the day. Join the Launchpad now. Just go to daretobegin.net/the Launchpad and sign up. Your success is inevitable. Now, let's launch it.